The overall message from this is that you can't go back. Even if going back feels safe and comfortable and familiar, you've grown, you've graduated, you're ready to move into this new story.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Astrologer Connect, your premier source for quality astrology readings.
Welcome, everyone. I am so happy that you are here. Thank you for joining us for the weekly weather. For those of you who are new to our channel, you have just joined a conversation that we're having here every single week, a worldwide conversation where we explore the astrology for the week ahead and the different energies that are present for us to actually work with in our lives in practical ways, in tangible ways, just getting the information that we need to make decisions in the right timing, to just show up in our lives in the best way that we can. So I'm super grateful you're here. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you are alerted anytime that we release a new episode. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Amanda Poole-Walsh, and I'm the founder of Astrology Hub. And today I am very thrilled to be introducing some of you. Some of you know Jaime. Some of you are new to Jaime. She is an astrologer. She works on our Astrologer Connect platform. She's also an internal member of our team, and she's just an amazing human being. And I'm so happy to have her here for her weekly weather debut. Just a little bit about Jaime. She has been practicing astrology for over a decade. She has written 22 novels. Mind-blowing. She blends traditional and modern techniques in her practice. She is the host of our Star Sign Horoscope weekly show. And she recently had her hosting debut on the Astrology Hub podcast on episode 658, The Importance of Having Astrology Friends. She did this with Laura Orcutt on our team as well. And it's a super sweet episode. If you missed it, highly recommend checking it out, especially for any of you who are feeling kind of lonely or lost on your astrological journey. They give some great tips for how to find your community. All right. So Jaime, before we dive into the weekly weather, I just want to ask, since you are an active astrologer doing consultations with people every single day, especially through our Astrologer Connect platform, which is awesome. What's the vibe right now? What is the number one thing that people are coming to you with? You know, what's weighing heavy on people's hearts as far as you can see in your clients?
Well, I have to say, I love talking to clients, even if it's on the instant reading or a booked reading, but everyone it's almost like we're in a space between what was and what will be. And we're feeling that. We're trying to wrap up our loose ends and move forward. Now, I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs or people who are working to, build their dream and transition into a new story. But there's also a lot of relationship, questions that are coming in, just really trying to figure out, how can I close this karmic loop? Should I close it? And what do I need to take into my new life with me? So it's really, like one of the analogies that I keep using, it's almost as if you are living in California and you're moving to another country, or you're living somewhere, you're moving to another country, and you're in this state right now where you're packing up everything. You're deciding what to store, what to sell, what you really need. And you don't really know what's going to be in the new area that you're moving in. You don't know exactly what you're going to need. You have a good view of it. And that's the process that we're in. So we're kind of really just looking, all of the clients that I've been talking to ever since even the end of December, maybe the last fall, is like, okay, what's next? How do I process this and move forward? And, sometimes, just knowing the dates and when to engage and when to just hold back and wait a moment and take a deep breath and let things process is all they need to really move forward, to make a really good decision that's going to be really long-standing, because that's what we're moving into. These decisions are opening up not new chapters, but new novels. Like, you're in a new section of the library altogether. Some of the energy that we're moving through in the spring alone.
I remember that at our yearly forecast, astrologers looked at March of 2023, where we're at now, and they went, wow, that's a huge month. There's a lot happening in this one month. It's very pivotal. And so now we're here. We're here in this, first full week of March. And I know there's some big astrology ahead. So what would you say is the theme for this particular week, and why?
So the theme I have is karmic tides. Like think about the ocean, which is definitely being reflected in the fact that Saturn, one of the biggest energetic shifts of this month and this year, is moving into Pisces. And this is anytime Saturn moves, Saturn stays in place for 2.5 years. It's always something that you notice. But Saturn has been in his rulership, a place where he feels really at home, his own castle since December of 17. He was in Capricorn, then in Aquarius. And now we're moving into a new element and a new sign. Now, with that alone, there would be a lot to unpack about this week. But to add to this, we have a Virgo full moon about an hour before Saturn moves into Pisces. Now, Virgo, it represents this archetype. It represents the sacred, the ordinary. It notices those careful details and the possibilities that how something very small can make a really huge change in your life. Now, so what this suggests is underneath the beams of this Virgo full moon, we might get a glimpse of Saturn's lesson plans as he walks into Pisces. And this could be on a collective level or on a personal level. Like it's almost you see what needs to change all at once. So that first initial glance is going to be really priceless. Now, the full moon is packed with a lot of energy adding to this. It's going to be in trine with Uranus. Now, Uranus offers insights, and it also gives us an invitation to lean into our growing edge. It leans into the new story. So we have a big planet moving into a new sign, and now we have this invitation that says, yes, flow in that new direction. Now, the edge to this is that the moon is in a wide square to Mars. Now, Mars is out of bounds, and he's touring the same place that he was in at the end of last November. So even though you're a lot clearer now than you were in November, deciding what action to take can still feel a little bit challenging. Like you know that you want to integrate this way, but you still see these choices and you still have a little bit of doubt. But as you said, the month of March is packed with so much changing energy. Like it's going to be hard to keep up at times. And the overall message from this is that you can't go back. Even if going back feels safe and comfortable and familiar, you've grown. You've graduated. You're ready to move into this new story of your life with this energy.
Jaime, can we talk a little bit just about Saturn and Pisces?
Yeah, absolutely.
Saturn stays in a sign for about 2.5 years, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That we've been in Saturn in Capricorn, then we were in Saturn in Aquarius. So that's been the last 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, almost 6. Yeah, definitely a long-standing place where Saturn has felt comfortable, and Saturn's our teacher. Wherever you find Saturn in your chart is where you are meant to develop mastery in this life. Now, that can be really challenging when you're young, but as you get older, you begin to partner with this energy. You lean into it. It's like that whole, that line, you become a master after doing something for 10,000 hours. Like Saturn really applies that kind of energy to what you're working on. And now Saturn is moving into a water sign. And one thing about Saturn in Pisces is as you move to the zodiac sign, the next sign improves on the qualities of the one that it just left. So in Aquarius, there was highs and lows with Saturn because Saturn can play on the side of light and dark. It really depends on your perspective. It depends on how willing you are to do the work and make the changes that you want to make or how much you want to hold on to something. But it also has a little bit of fear and a little bit of anxiety because it has to do with change. We almost say, okay, well, I don't want to change this because I'm comfortable here. Now in Aquarius, we had a lot of things in our society that came up. We had a little bit of a detachment, a little bit of separation. It was almost like that airplane view where you were looking down. You could say, okay, well, there's the city, there's the country, there's the river. And, there wasn't really, there was a sense of it, but it was almost easy to, I don't really want to say it, but almost easy to label things and say, okay, well, that's this and this is that. And there's, like I said, there was attachment. There's a little bit of space between you and I. But when Saturn moves into Pisces, that same sense of community, this is all of us, we're going to understand that we're all one. Like you're whoever is challenging you or whoever you love in your life, no matter how it is, we are all one. So Pisces really speaks to compassion and spirituality and boundaries and what is healthy for you in your daily sacred moments of your life and what is really giving you a lot of burdens or habits that are holding you back. Where do you escape? Where do you connect? And this can surface in a lot of ways, but Saturn's job is to remove anything that is blocking you from your purpose, however that is unfolding in your life. So, if you take one good glance at the keywords, you may think, oh, well, Saturn's going to give me a lot of spiritual boundaries. And that's what that's what's going to matter to me. That's from where everything around me is going to be, I'm putting this boundary between you and I. But none of those boundaries are unhealthy. And then we can look at the mundane side of this, like how the collective will feel about this energy. And I remember when we did the forecast events, I reflected on 93 and 96 and some of the big news stories. It was like people were starting to get online. They were starting to connect. There was also stories about Waco in Texas, like where we aren't coming out because there was people that they felt like they were, following a faith, but it was really restricting them. And recently in the news, because you always feel these big planets like Saturn, they're almost like a sunrise, like being outside when it's still pitch black dark and the sky gets a little bit bluer and then the sun starts to rise. And before you know it, you're in the middle of it. So I've been watching the news and all the recent stories. And recently in a university in Kentucky had a standard Wednesday morning service. As a Christian university. And right before this service ended, one of the kids got on stage and he confessed all of his flaws and all of his fears. And he was like, this is how I feel. And this is what I'm leaning into for strength. Well, the service never ended. All the kids stayed. And towards the end of the day, the university said, you know what? This is still going on if you guys want to come back. So they did. And it never ended. And it never ended. And by the time I heard about this, it had been going on for a week straight. And I heard about it through one of the big news stations. Like it was like come across. And what was interesting was this news station said that they were so intrigued by what was happening with this. Like, why are all these people like getting in their cars and driving to this university? Like from all over the place, California, New York, Canada, they were flying in. And the university, told this, national news circuit, they said, you know what, we love you and we appreciate your interest, but we don't want you here. No one here is running for political office. No one here is selling anything. Everything is free. And everyone in this community is sharing love. They're sharing weaknesses and their strengths. And I mean, then you would see the videos and it was spilling out of the university. It was lines all over the parking lot, people outside just really proclaiming this. Like it was insane. And Amanda, you know me personally, and I do not cry. I was like, what is this on my cheeks? Because you just felt like, oh my God, like it washed over you. And it finally ended after 2 weeks. Like after 2 weeks that the service or the university said, you know what? We love you. We have to end this because the town was inundated. It was inundated with so many people. And it was, it would take your breath away to look at. It was like Osbury University in Kentucky, right outside of Lexington. It actually inspired other, gatherings for it. I mean, it is just like, that's the kind of energy where like, we're just so hungry to feel connected and like we are one. And interestingly enough, like I watched a lot of like social media videos because you could see that. And there was only one criticism that I really came across, and it was at the end of it. And it was actually, and I had seen a lot of ministers speak a lot really positive about this, but it was from one minister. He's like, they had all these people here and not one, they hardly ever used scripture. They hardly ever did anything. And they didn't. They sang. It was about love. It was about prayer. It was like, I'm having this hard time. I appreciate you. So we had and I'm not saying that as Saturn moves into Pisces that we're not going to see the opposite of this. We're not going to see a break of illusion or where we're worshiping, or what we are in service to, wherever our faith and our spirituality goes to. But this just really amplified for me that hunger. Like we have been so detached. We have said things that we probably didn't mean. We really kind of channeled ourselves in a direction that may or may not have been healthy. Like we just felt like we were defending ourselves. Like if you're going to call me this, I'm going to call you that. I'm going to defend my space. But to see this beautiful energy, like it was simply remarkable. And I was excited to see that. Now, on the other hand, when Saturn went into Aquarius, we had this almost instant fear of the air. We had all of this reason to wear the mask and do all the things. And recently we had the derailment in Ohio. And at first, when that happened, it was about the air. They were worried about it. But now the conversation is about the water. And Pisces is ruled by water. So it's like, it's not, if it's not measuring here, it's going to be in the groundwater. And it's not just who lives on the river, it's how far you go and what is in your river. Now, this conversation is about water and rivers, and Pisces is usually the ocean, but I would hope that we would see, the damage that we're done and the possibility that we can, begin to heal this damage with this energy too. So there's like a lot of energy to work with when it comes to Saturn and Pisces. But overall, the message is, this is my purpose. Saturn's going to say, this is your purpose and this is what you need to reach it. Like this needs to be removed or added. This needs to be added to your life, one or the other.
Wow. That story is fascinating. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about it too, Jaime, is that it was the vulnerable sharing of the flaws of the mistake. If I'm understanding the story correctly, I haven't been following this, so I haven't heard the initial, confession or whatever this young person did to spark this 2-week service, which is amazing. But it's interesting because Saturn, is so much about, helping us identify where we do need to work, where we need, there's things about us that aren't, we need to improve upon, or we could improve upon. And so this kid's going up and saying, look, I'm not perfect. These are the things I've done. But like, can you hold me in that? Which is like so Pisces. It's really, really beautiful, and showing also the strength in vulnerability, which Taylor Schuler and I spoke about a few weeks ago on the podcast. Like that vulnerability is so often is actually strong, when someone can be that vulnerable. But that those two words also remind me of Saturn, like vulnerable and strong at the same time. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, this is a generation that grew up where your identity was your profile on your social media. And, if you didn't like this relationship, you delete, you move on. Now, as it grew, there was every generation there. There was children there. There was all kinds of people. But it was really, that vulnerability did show a lot of strength in that moment. And it's interesting, as an astrologer, you see this big story break. You're going to pull up the chart to figure out, what was happening in the sky at that moment. And, how did this impact it? And interestingly enough, it was right around the time that, Mercury and Pluto were meeting up. So that was a beautiful for these people. But a lot of us were basically kind of just digging up all these things that we buried and putting them on the table, which could have felt really intense. But at the same time, like the sky right now, most of the energy is on one side of it. And the moon was moving through Virgo, which is where we had that full moon this week. And this blew my mind. Like my jaw dropped. So the Sabian symbol for where the moon was at the time that service began, I'll probably misquote it, but basically said a caravan of people enter a caravan of cars and travel to a promise of a better life. I swear, like look it up. I was like, okay.
People that don't know what Sabian symbols are, can you just
I will do my, like Sabian symbols are just it's like they were downloaded, and it's just a little bitty phrase that represents degrees for each sign. So if you were to go and search a Sabian symbol for the degree of your sun, like the phrase that is by that will most likely resonate with you. And I believe Roger did a lot of work with this too, but I like to look up the signs or the fixed stars or anything around like a point, because I was like, yeah, that was really intense. Where did all this love come from? And I start looking at all those degrees, and that Virgo moon and right across, and the moon was across, Jupiter and Venus and Pisces. So it was just a beautiful energy, and it just had a lot of compassion wrapped around that, which is definitely what Pisces is about, is having that compassion. And like we mentioned in the forecast, in last time in 93, 96, that was the theme. Like the 11th Insight book came out. So it was all about like, trusting the group, and We Are One, and the Shawshank Redemption came out, and the book The Giver came out. So it was really talking about like, you can have compassion in your darkest hour. And if you can hold it in your darkest hour, you are invincible. Like if you can have faith when there's no reason to have faith in yourself and in your purpose, there's no stopping you. And that's what Pisces really dials into. energy.
Okay, so Jamie, if hearing correctly, this week we have Saturn moving into Pisces. An hour before that happens, we have the full moon in Virgo, which you're saying because of the configuration of the planets for that full moon, that it's going to be a little bit of a sneak peek into the Saturn and Pisces curriculum, quote unquote, for the next 2.5 years. It will, whatever's happening in your life at that time, whatever's up, whatever storylines you're navigating, those are going to give you clues into what this Saturn and Pisces energy might hold for you. Correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the clues are always there, but so you're going to have to really want to see them. But Virgo, and I want you to be cautious with this. So like if you see the clues, I don't want you to feel like you thought you were at the starting line and you're 4 blocks back and you're having to catch up, because it's like, oh wow, I thought I had almost accomplished this, but really you have to do all this work first. You know what I mean? Don't like be hard on yourself when you see the curriculum. See it as the possibilities, because Virgo does have a tendency to be like, I have all these things to do. I have all these details. And that's just because they know what perfect feels like. So whatever that glimpse is, I want you to lean into the positivity of it. Like, okay, I can do this. I know that on the other side of this journey, I'm going to be ready, but more ready than I ever could imagine for what's next in my life. But yeah, definitely, it's a beautiful glimpse. And the full moon also adds in, you know, where Taurus is going to be in trine with this energy. That's an area of our life where we've been already working on breakthroughs and changes, whether we like it or not, especially in fixed Taurus kind of energies. The North Node's been pulling us out of our, comfort zone. And then Uranus has been saying, okay, here's your growing edge, lean into it. And to fold all that together, there's a T-square, a loose square to this full moon, to an out-of-bound Mars in Gemini. Okay, so basically with Mars right now, even though it's a little bit frustrating and it feels really big because Mars is out of bounds, when a planet's out of bounds, that means that it's got a lot of energy and it's really like, okay, let's just go. Let's just get it done. So sometimes it kind of goes above the rules. So we have this really big energy. Mars is like, can I just please get out of, Gemini and move forward in this way? So you're ready to integrate things, but this is also a mutable energy, which means that you're like, okay, I have this choice, I have that choice. And you're trying to get clear. But like we mentioned before, it really is about packing everything up, tying up the loose ends, and moving into the new direction, just kind of adding all of this in together.
Okay. All right. Well, we've already started going pretty deep into the astrology, but if you can walk us through the days, because as you're speaking, I'm like, well, which day's the full moon? And
Yeah, okay.
You're going to start us with Monday, and we'll just walk through the days, and you can just touch on some of these points that you've already brought up, but help lay it out for the week.
All right. Before I go into the days, I just want to say that all this energy that we have been talking about is going to happen on the 7th. So that's tomorrow. You're definitely already feeling this. You're going to process it throughout the week. But we do have one more transit before we talk about the days. And that is how we're going to end this week. And that's with Jupiter conjunct Chiron in Aries. Now, this energy can unfold differently for everyone, but let's just unpack it really quick and talk about how Jupiter expands everything it touches, no matter if it's positive or negative. And Chiron is the wound that cannot be healed. Yet Chiron teaches us that though some wounds cannot be healed, there's always hope and a reason to go on. So this kind of wraps into the other energies we've already talked about. Now, this energy could stir up some wounds, especially around social circles, something we've already talked about, going from Aquarius to Pisces. It could stir up some anxieties about unspoken rules, which we have a lot of in our environment right now. But your job with this energy, and as you wrap up this week, is to really forgive yourself, forgive others, learn from your past, teach others by example or action, how you can rise above or avoid or broken pathways that will take you away from your purpose. I just wanted to say that before we dove into the days. All right.
Okay. That's a nice lay of the land. And now let's understand the timing of it.
Sure. Okay. So today, Monday, the sun is in Pisces and it's going to sextile Uranus in Taurus. The moon is in Virgo and the energy is building. We're getting ready to move towards that full moon. So you may already be really sensing, if not already engaged with some of the themes that Saturn and the full moon are going to bring into your life as you start working with this week. Now on Tuesday, the 7th, that's the big day that we've been talking about. We have the full moon in Virgo, trine Uranus, wide square with Mars. Now, if possible, with this energy in this day, I think it's good to try to be the observer when the opportunity presents itself, because there's going to be a lot of really high emotions, There's going to be endings. There's going to be launches. There's going to be everything occurring at the same time. A lot of feels. In a real way, like we've mentioned before, you're really standing between what was and what will be with this energy. So notice the details, follow your triggers. Saturn is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Okay. So Wednesday, you're still going to be feeling as if you are in the thick of everything that has just surfaced in your life. But the universe is kind of giving us a break this day. There's not a lot of big action that's going to happen transit wise on Monday. The moon will move into Libra. So this is going to bring a theme of balancing, noticing, okay, this does need to be adjusted. This is out of balance. I'm giving too much here. I'm not receiving too much here. This is almost like a hush. There's a quietness to this day. There's not going to be a lot of notifications or emails. It's almost like you have to soak it all in. Okay. So that's really good. Helps you process. Now on the next day, Thursday the 9th, you will still have some space to process. There's not going to be a lot of new information coming in. That's why I keep saying just process and process. It's really with this day about moving the unconscious to the conscious, to light, to making sure that you're saying, okay, this is why it bothers me. Because sometimes when you're in the heat of an argument or a disagreement or a big decision, you're not really sure why you don't want to say yes or why you don't want to say no. So that's your process as you work through Thursday. You're really starting to see, okay, I'm blaming this person for this. I regret it for this reason. And you're trying to look at both sides of the story as you work through this energy. Now, it's really important to notice as you do this reflection, not to lay blame on yourself or anyone else. Instead, to really ask yourself or notice, okay, I've healed and I've grown, and I have the power to help others heal and grow through this by just being an example of who I am. And overall, for this day, it really is going to depend on your perspective about how it's going to feel for you. If you have a really dark and depressed perspective and you're seeing, the negative, that's how it's going to feel. If you're really optimistic, those opportunities are going to start to reveal themselves to you. Like, okay, yeah, this could work out. Like, I do feel like we're moving in the right directions. It's sad. I'm going to miss that, but I'm ready. Now, on Friday, we have the moon shifting into Scorpio. Now, before this transition, it will square Pluto, who is getting ready to move into Capricorn, which we'll talk about next week. Now, what you've been thinking about over this whole week may feel like it has an edgy or an activating end, which means like you just abruptly, you have to make a change. You have to say what you've been thinking about through this energy. Now, overall, keep in mind that this is a needed change and it's going to empower your growth. If you can hold that in your mind as you wrap up this week. Now, also think about how anytime you have the invitation to surrender yourself, surrender to your, let go. I'm not going to fear this. I'm going to trust it. You want to do this because Scorpio is going to pull you deep, deep, deep down within. And sometimes it's a little bit scary. You don't want to go into the depths. You don't want to really know what your triggers are or why you feel this way because it could reveal another pattern. So just trust the depth, trust the surrender. And I think as you move through this day, acceptance is going to really start to take root in a big way. Now, Saturday, the 11th, this is a day, it's almost like you've wrapped up the week and you've moved into your weekend. You've started to process everything and you're getting ideas or suggestions. Now, these ideas or suggestions could come from just doing mundane tasks. Like, you walked away from the problem and now the idea comes in. You could have a conversation with someone and they just make a suggestion that sparks an idea about, you know what? Yeah, that's a good way to do that. That's a good way to think about it. Now that I see it through your eyes, I'm going to work with that. So kind of be open to suggestions, internal or external, as you move through Saturday. Now, I do think you will start to be feeling a little bit of that last transit that we talked about on Sunday, the 12th. That's where Jupiter is conjunct Chiron. And remember, it's going to expand what you focus on. So that's why it's important from the start to the finish of this week to really lean into your growing edge and what possibilities are held within the changes that you're making. And if you're able to do that, release your fear, release your pain, you're going to have the opportunity on Sunday and around this whole area to heal, to heal and say, you know what, I recognize this wound. I recognize what it's done to me and what it's taught me, but I also understand the strengths that I have and how I can move forward with it. And it's a pretty good way to wrap up the week if you're focused on healing, moving forward.
If Chiron is the wound that can never be healed, because I know there's certain wounds that it seems like we all sort of carry as humans. Like, the wounding around abandonment or rejection or even like some of our mortality fears or wounds, in your experience when you're working with clients or with yourself, what happens to those types of wounds as we work with Chiron? Like, do they just get less intense? Do we actually mine them for the gifts? Like, what actually happens with that?
I do feel like it's more of the latter, like mining them for the gifts. Because, Chiron it also shows up in a lot of soulmate charts and really deep relationships. And it's because this person, like if you look at the chemistry or the synastry of your chart and someone's Chiron on a personal planet or in that area, this person can see to the depths of your soul. They see everywhere that you're wounded and they can hold you. Now, the flip side of this is they actually know how to hurt you too because they can see it. So it's not always a good way to go. But as you said, some of the wounds that we carry, and you can see in your chart, usually like when I work with clients, you can identify, okay, this is where you met this pain for the first time. And this is where this pain was, you were reminded of this pain. And so when you start to see your patterns and how you interact with it, that's already taking you closer to healing. And sometimes where a wound is in our life, we're able to help other people. So if you have a relationship wound, like if you were really hurt, like you were destroyed, you have some processing to do there. You have to learn to trust yourself because you have a little bit of blame. Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I feel it? Was I not enough? And then once you move past those energies, it's trusting that the next person it's not going to be a pattern. And then having that next relationship pay for the sins of the prior relationship. Like it's definitely a little bit of a soul dance that you're working with, but it's something that you can help other people through. Like you're going to go on your own mission of saying, okay, well, I'm growing through this, but you're also going to invariably like attract someone into your life that is holding that can heal from it, or that you can prevent them from it, or you can give them strength as they walk through their dark night of the soul. So I do think that the wound that cannot be healed is almost like it's one of those things that you always talk about, Amanda. Like, I don't know if that's the right title for that because there's so much beautiful energy behind it. And you're like, well, I don't want to walk around, with this, something that hurts all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Definitely not very hopeful to think. I mean, but it's also sort of true. There's those things where it's like, no matter how many times we work on ourselves and we revisit the thing over and over, and we have therapy or our astrology readings or whatever it is, it can still get triggered.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, those triggers, like the treasure is behind the trigger, and it's something. I mean, anyone who's suffered really intense anxiety, and sometimes these are definitely around Saturn returns, or like when you're really focused with the Saturn, you have all this fear. But, like in psychology, what you learn is that once, like say you had an anxiety attack, you were just under a lot of stress and you had an anxiety attack going to a grocery store, but you got past it. But now every time you go like to a grocery store, you still have this fear that, oh my, what if I feel this way again? Or what if I'm trapped this way again? And it's there, but you almost find like a tool, like whether an internal or an external tool that tells you, okay, I can go to the store. I can have this conversation. I can be at this social gathering. I can do whatever I need to do. I'm going to be fine. And then when I say tools, it's not really coping methods. You could have you could have something to calm you down, lavender oil, or something like you journal or you write or you do something to express your hope for this. But there's courage to be found there. And that's where the Chiron asteroid really represents, is that courage. Like I am half this and I'm half that. He was half mortal. He was half God, and he was a healer, and he went into the most dangerous places and he carried on. So, I mean, it really is a treasure. It's a treasure because it's something where you carry strength and other people will admire you because you do carry it, and you'll be able to help them through it. So, and I think like with Jupiter and Aries is new energy. Aries is striking the match and going in a different direction. So setting an intent to heal, to strike new ground, to close this chapter and move into this new book, start writing a new story. It's all very possible, especially considering the heavy signatures that we have this week, and even heavier new ones that we're going into in the coming weeks. It really is about trusting where I want to go from here. Like, how can I make this my story?
Okay, so a huge week. I mean, really, we've been looking at this Saturn and Pisces transition for a while. You're
Mhm.
saying that this is a karmic tide type week. That I love the analogy of the packing up the house. And I mean, I know people who are actually doing that right now. And the process can feel grueling, right? Because you have to look through everything. What do I need? What do I want to keep? What should I get rid of? And there's also the process of going through the memories themselves, which can be overwhelming. And it's a lot. But it sounds like this is really important work for us to be doing right now. And I know also it's right before the Aries new moon, where we'll be doing our treasure mapping and all
Yeah.
that process again. But just getting rid of the things you don't need anymore, clearing the slate, getting ready for a very new chapter. That is, we're beginning it now.
Yeah.
You said when it's time to remove what is taking us away from our purpose.
Whether we remove it or not, Saturn's going to help us see this and take it. Now, this also is working with Saturn. It's good to hold things with an open palm, because you may think that something needs to stay, that it's part of your purpose and it's important to you, but you only have your perspective, and Saturn has a different perspective. Your purpose, your spirituality has a different perspective than you. So if things do leave, you have to trust that if they're meant to stay, they will, and if they're meant to come back, they will. But you don't get to choose what you remove.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Saturn, the ultimate demander of mastery.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, but you also said that there's a lot of opportunity this week for hope and reason to continue on, for forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others. And so, we have a lot of opportunities this week to really let go. And that could mean letting go of something you've been holding on to about yourself, like something that you need to forgive in yourself in order to be moving forward.
Absolutely. And largely this week, and I think this stands for any week, this is something I definitely teach and coach and like within my clients. Your perspective is going to make a huge difference. Like some of us are going to have a really remarkable breakthrough week, and we're going to embrace the change. And we may be scared. We may be like, I don't know if I completely trust this, but I'm leaning. And some of us are going to focus on the past or all the reasons why we can't do something. And we're going to have two different perspectives. So I really just encourage you to keep and I think if you're watching the show, you're probably, in that mindset anyways. Like I want to, be in rhythm with the universe. But your perspective and where you put your energy is really going to define how you feel this week. So I could tell you it's optimistic because I feel like I'm going to make these optimistic changes. But
Because you're a Sagittarius.
maybe like Sagittarius rising and all my Sagittarius planets. But yeah, it definitely does. It takes some work. It's not easy to be optimistic all the time because things do hurt and they are dark and it's sad. But really, and I have said before on this platform, Jupiter is my favorite planet to work with. It's really dominant in my chart. But it's not because why everyone thinks, everyone thinks it's because, yeah, it's this big, abundant lover of, luck. And how could you not love it? It's wisdom, all this stuff. I love Jupiter because it underlines and amplifies the idea of the law of attraction or like the laws of the universe. It literally grows whatever you put your attention on. And it's really dominant right now. It's in Aries. It's got a lot of fiery energy. It's pronounced this week with Chiron. And it's just really important to understand the power you have. Like you may not always have the power over the circumstances or what you need to do, but you do have the power over your reaction or how you see it. And sometimes that's easy to forget, especially when everything seems so bad, especially when you're fed so much negativity and so much reason to not have hope. Like it's interesting with that news story that I told you about. Just alongside of it are all these fear mongering, like, all these bad things are going to happen, build a bunker, like all these weird, hard stories. But then you had this other story about love. So it's really about where you put your energy. And that's going to serve you really well through the spring. It's going to be a little energetic shift.
So you're saying that basically what we're putting our attention on is going to expand. And so being very mindful and discerning and deliberate about what we're focusing on is going to it's very important this week and it will continue to be important. So just remembering to do that.
Absolutely. Because I mean, Jupiter, and this is going to come up in future weekly weathers, but Jupiter's moving through Aries. He's going to go into Taurus and really plant a lot of the seeds that you have now. But as we mentioned earlier, Taurus is that area where we are already working through all these breakthrough energies. We have Uranus in the North Node that's been focusing there. So it's almost like the more intention you have right now, if you have that intention, you're going to see the opportunities and you're going to hold those opportunities as Jupiter moves forward. And he's going to plant something that's going to be remarkable. But it's all about where you put your energy. And it's okay to like say, okay, yeah, this is hard. You know, this feels hard. I don't really want to do this, but look for the optimism. And when you look for it, I promise you, you will find it. It'll be a song, a phone call, something.
Well, and surround yourself with people that help you do that. You know, I
Yeah.
have a lot of people in my life that like, even if I'm not feeling capable of seeing the opportunity or seeing the silver lining, or I have so many people in my life, you included, Jaime, who will help me go, hey, like think of it this way, or look at this, or can you reconsider that? And I find that to be super helpful because it's really easy to have people in your life that do the other thing, you know, that you just pile on the negativity and now you're all tumbling around in that negative space together. So definitely surrounding yourself with good community and people that are seeing possibilities instead of always seeing obstacles. So,
Yes.
yeah.
We can be a realistic optimist.
Realistic. And I misspoke earlier. This is just a testimony to how much the rising sign and your ruling planet dominate your chart, because I always think of you as a Sagittarius.
Yeah, that's okay.
You're a Scorpio, but like I in my head, you're a Sagittarius. Like you have so much of Sagittarius.
Right.
Yeah.
Fine.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that amazing overview of the lay of the land that we have. Well, lay of the waters that we have ahead of us. And if you're interested, any of you, in getting a reading with Jaime, she is available on our Astrologer Connect platform. You can access her directly at astrologyhub.com/Jaime Connect. That's astrologyhub.com/Jaime, Jamie Connect. Or you can go to astrologyhub.com/connect and find Jaime there and book her through that process, or see if her little green light's on and you can connect with her instantly, which is one of the most amazing features that people are utilizing when they are going throughout their day and they have questions. Hey, my day is really crazy. I would love to know what's happening astrologically. Or, hey, I just had this idea or this thought. Is this a direction that is supported in my chart? I'd love to know what an astrologer has to say. There's all kinds of things that come up throughout our day that having an astrologer to just kind of bounce things off can be super, super, super helpful.
Absolutely. And I love the instant calls. I love having that light on and connecting with people because I have that instantaneous vibe to myself too. Like, I'm like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait like 7 hours or 2 weeks for my reading. I want to talk to somebody now. Like while I'm
Or
in the
months or years. There's certain astrologers that you're waiting years just to get a reading. No, I agree. It's one of the reasons why we have that feature, is just because it's so helpful. And it's one of the ways that I've used astrology in my life from the very beginning. And you know this, Jaime. Something will happen. I'm like, hey, Jaime, what's going on? Like, what's happening in my chart right now? So thank you so much for being here, Jaime, for the weekly weather. Thanks to all of you for tuning in, for being a part of our community. As always, thank you for making astrology a part of your life. Can't wait to connect with you on the next episode, and just happy Saturn in Pisces. We're in a whole new world. Yeah.
Absolutely. New vibes. All
right. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Did you know there's a whole universe that you can unlock with so-called minor aspects? Most astrologers don't even use them, but master astrologer Rick Levine calls them harmonic aspects, saying they're key to revealing the deeper, metaphysical dimension of a birth chart, including the creative, mystical, and unseen parts of ourselves and others. And if you want a taste of how powerful they can be, just listen to what he has to say about some of the subtiles in play during his February and March forecast.
There's one other thing that happens in February. By the 12th, Venus makes a septile. That's 1/7 of a circle to Pluto. Venus makes a septile to Uranus. Boom, boom. What are septiles? They're otherworldly. They're supernatural. Dane Rudhyar said they were fated. Things come out and things come through that we're somehow in other realms. And like Uranus, it's like lightning striking. And I think the combination of Mercury going into Uranus's modern sign of Aquarius and all these subtiles will awaken us to the idea that we don't see everything that we think we do. Of course, it's not lost on me that this is the first week of Foundations Level 3 course, and it's just such an overwhelming subtile message that we get from the universe. I really think that this is going to be a bit of a wake up in mid-February.
If you're ready to uncover these powerful unseen aspects in your chart, join us for Astrology Foundations Level 3 with Master Astrologer Rick Levine at astrologyhub.com/foundations3.